some industries are so far ahead of others that for them it's not really gaining an advantage, it's staying on the market. Because if you don't have an adaptation plan for climate change, if you don't have a product carbon footprint calculated, if you are not aware of your societal impacts, then you are not going to be in the supply chain of the specific industry companies.
Welcome to the SEED Executive Insights podcast series, where we, as SEED faculty members, discuss intriguing topics with invited executive guests. I'm György Leitner, and today I'm here with Réka Szücs, Director of Sustainability and Climate Services Department at Deloitte, Hungary. Réka, so welcome. And first of all, let me congratulate you for the SEED Excellence Award, which we presented end of last year, I guess. And I'm very, very happy and proud of you as we work together in a business leadership program. So very well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So may I jump into sort of a little bit provocative question in terms of who becomes an expert of ESG, which is a very innovative new area. Career-wise, I understand that this is very hot topic, so it's great to get into it. But looking at your CV and what you did and you've done so far, it must be a mission as well. So where are you in this scale?
Yes, I think I can start with my personal approach to it, because it wasn't a conscious decision. I wish it was, but back then when I started working, I didn't really know what ESG is going to become. So it started off with me being interested in the environment, how it works, and just liking biology in high school. And then I went to the university. I started working with those subjects that are really the basis and the foundation of what sustainability is now, and started working as an environmental consultant. And the more I learned, the more I liked about the topic and how we can just do something for the benefit of everyone. And of course, I started to worry more and more about climate change, and that sort of became not just my work and what I like doing, but also something that I'm passionate about in my free time as well. So not just my professional, but my personal life is related to that. But if I look at my team, it is really diverse. So it is exactly what you said, that it's something that interests a lot of people, but it really needs different approaches and different solutions. So from data science.
Checked out the S element of ESG in your team already. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And also the G part as well. Because I think a diverse team can provide the complex solution that these topics and these questions need. And if it would be only environmental engineers, it would be not just boring, but also ineffective. Because I think what is very interesting and beautiful in ESG is that it requires this coordinated effort of different specialists.
Right. And where are we in the world with ESG? So initially there's been a huge sort of enthusiasm around. On the other hand, there are articles that, ESG is not the three letters that would save the world. On one hand, some people think that this is woke. On the other hand, it attracts huge investment. So where are we about that?
Yes, I think it's a very difficult question. What I usually say is that ESG is nothing new. It's just a new name to something that already existed for quite long. Because the parts of environmental protection, the parts of looking at sustainability as a societal question, and also having the tools to really monitor it and put it into strategic perspectives have been there already. And there are a lot of good examples who managed to do that quite successfully. But it is true, it is considered to be this new awakening of something truly altruistic, to try to help everyone, to look at this savior perspective. But I don't think it's completely true. We have seen many examples in the past, like the state of California when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor. They really invested in the sustainable technologies and looked at those different, more effective solutions to help them become a better running state. And in that sense, I think it has been with us for a very long time.
Right, but I suppose it's very difficult to measure. Comparing A company to B company and what is having, which is more attuned to ESG and even delivering more value in that frame. So how do you measure that?
Yes, it can be done from several different approaches, and I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all kind of solution. But when we look at ESG, there is an intrinsic risk related to it, and climate change can be a common denominator in that sense. So if we look at the different risks that companies, business models, or locations or anything poses to the operation, that can be a way to actually measure and monitor their performance. Because if they are getting ready to tackle these and address these risks and mitigate them as much as possible, may they be transitional risks, may they be real physical risks, then we can say that that company looks into the future and can be a good next step for them. So they manage the question on a strategic level, and thus will be potentially sustainable from a business perspective.
Yeah, but I learned that there are some indices already, like Dow Jones and the others, but it's still quite controversial. So there are companies which are out. Nobody understands why. There is, on the other hand, Wirecard, and everybody is aware of the big scandal. It was on the list, top of the list, actually. So it is very, very controversial still. Is it going into the right direction, or where does it evolve?
Yes, I think rating in that sense, an ESG rating, will always have these flaws, but I think it is a good direction. There is a need to be able to compare these companies, and it's quite apples and pears kind of comparison, because you cannot say like an automotive company compares to a pharmaceutical company, for example, because they have completely different societal benefits and just different. So it's quite hard. But if we look at them from this risk perspective of how they are aligning their business models to the changing environment, then that can be a good solution. But yeah, I completely agree. There are always these scandals, and it will always be questioned. I think that's all right. If there's more discussion around the topic, then we will probably get closer to the truth. So I think it's always good. One of these examples was Tesla. Tesla and Elon Musk himself, he really said that ESG rating is just nonsense. It's something made up, because his performance was derated.
The G element.
Yeah, the G and the S one. Yeah. And that's true. And I think that also shed some light on an interesting topic when it comes to electric vehicles. And those discussions are hard to have, but they are very much needed. So I think it's going in the right direction, but we always have to have that kind of patience and understanding when it comes to discussing these.
Right. So if we talk about ESG, and I would like to ask you just to define a little bit for those who may not be so familiar with that, but whose priority should it be? Companies' priorities, the stakeholders, investors, the society?
Yes, very interesting. It's quite hard to pinpoint someone, because I think there is an understanding in the sense that it is coming from the society. There is a need in society to understand better how these companies work and how they affect our lives. May we be the customers or just bystanders in that equation. So there is a big societal push in that sense. So I think society is one of the key stakeholders. Investors, for sure. We have seen that this ESG investing and ESG conscious investment is really really important and interesting for this group. But also, if we look at companies, it's for their own benefit. So if they understand their performance, if they understand where they are from the regulatory perspective, from their customers' point of view, that's always really important. But I would also add one other segment that I've already mentioned a couple of times. It's the regulator. It's the lawmaking that is really needed in ESG, or in this approach of ESG trickling down. Because as this big revolution of sustainability began in the European Union, at least, it was related to the European Commission and their agenda to really make a conscious effort to transform how we are operating as a continent, and to be more conscious of our environment and be more sustainable at the end. So their regulations affected the financial industry, and then the financial industry made this this obligation a reality by looking out into their supply chain, their portfolio companies. So it then trickled down the entire chain. So I would say that it's definitely companies who will have to address it, because at this point where we are in the whole timeline of ESG, it's now on the companies to really make an effort.
If we come to the company level, and it's a very interesting question that how can you gain a competitive edge through maximizing ESG? And that will be a question to you. But first, I've read several ESG reports preparing award-winning ones by Deloitte, preparing for this discussion. And well, some are really robust, 100 pages. And as a layman in this area, I could tackle on certain points that, that as a part of the society, I was happy that certain companies, big companies, are dealing with this and that, climate, decarbonization, social, gender balance, blah, blah, blah. So I was very happy to read those. But if we look at that on scale, greenwashing on one hand, and there are some companies which they got it from investors or the public. On the other hand, really truly believe in that, and it is becoming a part of the purpose of the company. So where do you see the regional companies here?
I think there will always be a group that is more ambition than solid data, but I think it's also needed. It comes back to us as a whole to hold each other accountable, and in that sense, companies being held accountable. So if we have good rules and regulations, or even an understanding society around it, who can push back when greenwashing comes to light, that's, I think, what is the healthiest in that sense. There, in Hungary, at least, we have quite strong regulations related to greenwashing. So it has been controlled quite well, I would say. So there's less greenwashing in our region than it was like 10 years ago from that point, and also compared to other regions.
But how can you identify that, this is a greenwashing sort of campaign, or this is not? So
absolutely.
How can you differentiate?
There are different signs of greenwashing, like if something sounds too good to be true, if something is like real common sense, but it's advertised as something that is a gain or something that's great. My favorite is that when you can see on like soaps and these shower gel bottles that it's made of mostly natural ingredients, and the first ingredient is always water. So that's not really a claim to be made. But I think there are 7 signs for greenwashing in the articles that I've read. I think the easiest way to pinpoint greenwashing is to really question it in ourselves. Can this be really true? And if the answer is yes, of course, it's substantiated for the next 5 pages in a sustainability report, then we can say it is a real statement. But what the regulator is actually looking at in Hungary is exactly this: if these green claims are substantiated or not, and there needs to be data to really hold these statements up. If it's impossible, then it is going to become greenwashing, and there will be another scandal. This happened already. So I think there are these bad examples that we can look at and that companies can look to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's come to the competitive advantage question. So can you really gain through maximizing ESG a competitive edge over other rivals?
Yeah, I think it depends really on the industry. I wish I could say, like, of course, ESG is definitely going to give you that, but some industries are so far ahead of others that for them it's not really gaining an advantage, it's staying on the market. Because if you don't have an adaptation plan for climate change, if you don't have a product carbon footprint calculated, if you are not aware of your societal impacts, then you are not going to be in the supply chain of the specific industry companies. So some industries are very really in the forefront of this. And in others, there is still opportunity to make this into an advantage. On a company level, if we look at just any company, irrespective of their industry, I think there is still potential to gain efficiency from looking at the environmental, the social, and the governance aspects. But in the European Union, I also agree with the people who say that ESG is already well regulated, so we will not see those big differences that we could other places of the world. Because we do have quite strong environmental laws, and we do have human rights laws that prohibit those behaviors that could be a disadvantage. But what I think is also really important to understand and look at, that the ESG approach is not just looking at one's own company or the perimeters of the actual company that they work in, but also the supply chain. And that's where I think the real question comes in, whether a company understands where their raw materials come from, whether they understand how they are made or how they are mined or where they actually come from. And that's the next step really that we have to take.
So if we want to list the real benefits or values created through ESG, what would be the top 5 on that list, on your list?
That's a very, very great question, because I think we often look at ESG from a compliance perspective. It's something that you have to do. And if you did it, it's a tick box exercise. But there is this value of understanding better the operation and therefore identifying efficiencies and new measures for that. I think that can be the top of the list. The second is to really live up to the purpose of the company, because many companies are quite vocal about their purpose in the world and how they want to benefit humankind. So I think a better alignment to that and the more conscious alignment can be a value that ESG can uncover. And another one could be to be more attractive to the younger generation, to the next generation of workers who can be in the company itself or can become customers of it, because it's something that we see that it is a value for the new generation, and therefore having not just an understanding and not just saying that it's there, but really having it ingrained in the purpose of the company is quite crucial.
Mm-hmm. In terms of grabbing more investments or attracting more investments, I read that during the pandemic, the social good type of investments were really rising, which a little bit leveled up afterwards. But Do you see it as an attractive sort of target, a company which is really investing in ESG and doing it as a part of its purpose, rather than just a financially healthy company B? Would that attract company A more investment today, or is it really a decisive factor for investors?
Yes and no, and third option maybe, if I can say that, because I completely agree that there's this sense of attractiveness in ESG conscious investment. With the EU taxonomy defining the green activities, that's a really good compass of finding those actual economic activities that are for the benefit of sustainability. But with the social taxonomy, we will also get this from the social perspective. And why I said it's third option, that I don't think that on a long term a company can be financially viable if they don't address ESG, or if they don't understand their connection to ESG. And the reason why I'm saying that is exactly because of the risks. So where we started, I think, our conversations about the ratings and how we can measure it, it's really about grasping that long-term risk that climate change poses, or that the changes in regulations are posing. So if we do not consciously manage the environmental, the social, and these governance aspects, then the company cannot really stay financially viable.
Mm-hmm. Which sectors or industries are the forerunners of ESG? Because you mentioned that
yes,
there is a difference.
Yes, there is quite a big difference, and from different perspective, it can be different industries. But the pharmaceutical and chemical industry is pretty much a leader in this sense, together with food and beverages, because they understand, and I think those are the companies who really have a strong footing in understanding their supply chain enough to be able to address it in that sense. But I would also highlight the automotive industry, because of the questions that I mentioned with the electric vehicles, with the supply chain there, and this real need of efficiency. So these traditional automotive sectors, or like the traditional product of the automotive sector, is in itself questionable from the sustainability perspective. So there is innovation that is needed there. So they're very much focused on bringing that in.
Okay. Speaking about you and your team at Deloitte, how can you support a company which really would like to enhance its ESG activities?
Yes, I think the most important starting point is to understand that ESG is really affecting the entire company, all of their functions and everything. It's not just an isolated team that is focused on ESG, and my team is really dedicated to finding those solutions and sustainability, and bringing in the understanding of the topic and facilitating the capacity building within the organization to really unlock that new transformed operational model. But we always work together with our fellow colleagues in Deloitte. So we have the specialists for the different industries, we have the sustainability specialists, we have the technology ones. So it is a team effort. And how we approach it generally, if we are starting at a new company, we always have a gap assessment where we understand where we are. So to understand the as-is working of a company. And after that, we help create a roadmap of how we can actually get to the desired states, which is already within the company. So the understanding and the way where we want to go is usually there, but the tools are the ones that we have to find together. So what we are doing is to, from the very technical calculation and analysis perspective, having a GHG inventory, having a product carbon footprint, really support to the strategic planning level and even the capacity building.
How can you get over that? I'm assuming that there may be a sort of defensive approach from the leadership of a company that, okay, now because of regulatory purposes, I have to do it. I want to be over that easily without major risks. So that's what I call a defensive, where the leadership haven't acknowledged that, okay, there may be, value added through this ESG readiness. I mean, enhancing the readiness for ESG. So you as a consultant, do you see yourself in that role, that really changing the mindset of leaders in how they approach ESG?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's one of the best moments and one of the most rewarding moments when we see the change in the company or in the people who we work with. Because it's not, I think that's a good point, what you described, where we understand that it's a compliance question. We have to get it done and be as quick as possible in it. That's already a good starting place. The worst one is when we know that it's a compliance question, but on the top management level, it's considered as like a naive idea of how the work and how the world should run. And from that to really get to the bottom of like, no, this is a question of yes or no, this is a compliance issue, this is something that attracts investors, this is something that will make investment impossible if not addressed, something that's business critical. That's the first step to really understand together how it is and actually the zero starting point of everything. And for us, it's usually going step by step of understanding the topic, of understanding the cause and what is the result of it, and just working on a better understanding. But to be really honest, my experience is that in Hungary, at least, there are more and more CEOs and top managers who understand this topic, not just from a business perspective. Many are already, but others from a personal perspective. So many CEOs have their children approaching them, asking these questions. And when it is coming from home, it's, I think, the most, the hardest to say, no, that's fine, it's going to be all right. So there is this already personal connection building.
How does digitalization or digital transformation help ESG, enhancing ESG readiness?
It's a very, I really like this question, because I think that the other foster child in that sense is digitalization. Like ESG and digitalization are the buzzwords of these days that we're living in. And for that reason, I think we can approach them understanding what they mean and understanding how they connect to the other parts that we know. But in many cases, it's just taken as something that's an idea that's not going to happen, something that's just there to show, that is really just a buzzword. But I don't think so. I think it's really important. And the reason why I think they are super connected is that ESG is an approach. It's not something that needs to be developed within an organization, that there needs to be one person who is an ESG expert. Everyone should understand ESG. And of course, there is someone who will coordinate this effort, but it's something that needs to transform within the organization. And digitalization is, I think, a similar concept, that it's not something that you just put into an organization. It's something that will change drastically how the organization works and how the company actually works. And digitalization is a tool and an enabler of ESG, because not being able to effectively gather the data that you can use for strategic decision making is the biggest challenge. It's a barrier that cannot be addressed in any other way, but by identifying those solutions, those technical solutions that you have to implement. So digitalization will, I think, accelerate the ESG conscious understanding and the discussion around ESG from solely being this, is this worth it? Is this something that investors would be attracted to exactly what we have been discussing of like how it will generate value for my organization as well.
Reading through those ESG reports, as I mentioned before, that brought some very, very great examples that I learned through these reports. Are there any best practices for you, memorable ones, through working with companies?
From ESG reports?
Not the reports as it is, but it's more, activities that certain companies did. We may not mention the company name, but some best practices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can even name my favorite reports as well. And the evolution from the reporting, I think that's really good to see. And those are the activities that I think define a good ESG management approach. Because ESG used to be part of CSR, so like this corporate social responsibility that was generally a marketing or PR device. But as we gathered more information, as we saw the real connections between cause and effect, then it became something more. And for me, understanding what we did and what was the result of it as a company, and identifying those critical factors that really made something successful or something unsuccessful that we can then address and change in the future, that's I think the most important result of a sustainability report, because it allows people to reflect on those actual activities, technical activities in many cases that they did, and identify the challenges and identify those parts where they were really beneficial. What I think is really important is also depends on the purpose of the company and how they formulate their vision and mission, but it usually gets back to the discussion with their stakeholders. So stakeholder engagement is, I think, a core element of these reports. Even if there are hundreds of pages, there are usually, and in the European Sustainability Reporting Standard, mandatory discussion with the organization's own experts and often their external stakeholders. And I think that having that kind of mirror before embarking on really looking back at one whole year is really important. What I also really like is when there is connection between the different years of sustainability reports. So if one company addresses a topic in 1 year as and identifies it as a challenge, and then in the next year we can see that there were different actions that they took to make it work. I think that's really important. But maybe what is, I think, the most interesting is that when ambition and like blind ambition turns into understanding ambition, that's, I think, really important. And we often see that in sustainability reports, that the first one says something really, really ambitious as a goal. And then for the next one, we saw and we can understand that there was a year of work in understanding that goal and really making it work, and understanding how it compares to the actual business model, and potentially resulting in this inconsistency that needs to be addressed. So I really like when companies have this sort of self-reflection and assessment, and then openly and transparently talk about how they reshaped their ambition based on the result and the monitoring that they did as part of their sustainability reporting. So I think those are the highlights for me.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Réka, for this very, very interesting discussion, and all the best with your team.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.